A bank teller steals from the robber before the robbery even happens. A journalist witnesses a murder, calls the police, and then suddenly there is no body. And a ventriloquist dummy was so disturbing that parents complained the trailers were traumatizing their kids. Today we are going back to the 70s for suspense movies that still deserve more attention. Night Moves stars Gene Hackman as Harry Mosby, a low-rent private investigator in Los Angeles. Harry runs a one-man agency, even though his wife Ellen wants him to shut it down and take a job with a bigger firm. And I should say right away, the cast here is good. They all still work in the shadow of Hackman though. But back to the story. Harry's latest case involves finding Deli, a teenage runaway and the daughter of a former Hollywood starlet. While working the case, Harry also discovers that Ellen is cheating on him. So when a lead takes him to Florida, he's not exactly unhappy to get away from his marriage for a while. In the Florida Keys, Harry finds Deli living with her stepfather Tom and Tom's girlfriend Paula. Also circling the case is Quentin, a nervous friend of Deli's who works as a mechanic for movie stuntmen. Each new piece of information changes Harry's relationship with someone, and Hackman makes that confusion and disappointment feel painfully human. The ending is the part that really makes it work. It does not just come as a complete surprise, which would be easy enough. It also pulls everything together in a new way. The Silent Partner is about a bank teller, played by Elliot Gould, who realizes a robbery is about to happen and uses that knowledge to hide almost $50,000 from the bank's cash. So when the robbery finally happens, the robber, played by Christopher Plummer, walks away with less than he expected. This is a pretty quiet movie and you will not find a lot of dialogue here. But if that does not put you off, you get a tense cat-and-mouse game between a professional criminal and an office worker who may not be as harmless as he looks. I do not know why this one did not become better known. It is very well made, and it is not without a sense of humour. In my opinion, this is one of the best thrillers of the 70s. And let me stop right away on another must-see, The Parallax View. I always thought this one was pretty well known. Then I checked IMDb and saw that it has far fewer ratings than I expected for one of the key 70s conspiracy thrillers. It was also not exactly a box office hit when it came out. So yes, let's include it here just in case some of you missed it or somehow never knew it existed. The story follows investigative journalist Joe Frady, played by Warren Beatty. He begins looking into the assassination of political candidate Charles Carroll, and that investigation leads him toward the Parallax Corporation, a faceless organization with a division of human engineering. The film clearly echoes the political assassinations and conspiracy fears of the previous decade. But it is not just about one killer or one crime. Its real focus is a world where guilt is hard to pin down, because power is spread across corporations, agencies, networks, and disposable operatives. The following year, American audiences got another Jodie Foster film, The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. She plays Rin, a young girl who has recently moved to a seaside town with her poet father. The strange thing is that Rin always seems to be alone. Whenever people ask about her father, she has an explanation for why he is not around. But over time, this starts to attract attention, especially from her landlady and the landlady's son, played by Martin Sheen, who takes an unsettling interest in Rin. Some people describe The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane as horror, and there are frightening moments here. But the film mostly works through tension and the feeling that everyone is getting too close to the truth. Foster is excellent here. She plays Rin with so much control that you can almost believe nothing is wrong, and then you remember how young she was when she made this film. Play Misty for me was Clint Eastwood's first film as director, and he also stars as Dave Garver, a radio disc jockey in Carmel by the Sea, California. Dave has a regular caller who keeps asking him to play the jazz standard Misty. One night he meets a woman named Evelyn Draper at a bar. Soon he realizes that Evelyn is the woman who has been calling his show, and that their meeting was not exactly accidental. For Dave, it was supposed to be a one-night stand. For Evelyn, it clearly was not. She becomes increasingly possessive and starts forcing her way into his personal and professional life. The film is a straight-up psycho thriller, and even by today's standards, it still has moments of surprising terror. A lot of that comes from Jessica Walter's scary performance as Evelyn. Eastwood does a good job, but Walter is undoubtedly the star of the film, and her scream near the end is hard to forget. Magic follows Corky, played by Anthony Hopkins, a socially awkward magician who finally seems close to real success. But his life begins to unravel because of his strange relationship with Fats, the ventriloquist dummy he uses in his act. And if puppets or dolls make you uncomfortable, this one will probably work on you very quickly. By the way, Hopkins plays both Corky and the voice of Fats, which is pretty creepy in itself. And Fats is disturbing to look at before he even opens his mouth. That is probably why he was the only character featured in the film's infamous promotional trailers at the time, which drew complaints from parents who said their kids were being traumatized. And since we are talking about 70s suspense, let's finish with two Brian De Palma films, starting with Sisters. The film follows Grace Collier, a newspaper reporter from Staten Island, who witnesses what looks like a brutal murder in the apartment of her neighbour, French-Canadian model Danielle Breton. Grace calls the police, but when they arrive, there is no body. After they dismiss the case, she starts her own investigation and tries to find out what is really going on with Danielle. Sisters is clearly working with Hitchcock-style suspense, especially the idea of a neighbour watching something she maybe was not supposed to see. De Palma also uses split screens during the killing and the police visit, which makes that feeling of watching and being watched even stronger. This one is definitely worth watching. The second Brian De Palma film is Obsession. De Palma made this one from a script by Paul Schrader, based on a story they developed together, and this time the Hitchcock connection is even harder to miss. Vertigo is the main point of reference, and that feeling is pushed even further by Bernard Herrmann's romantic score. The story begins in 1959. Michael Cortland, played by Cliff Robertson, is a husband and father whose wife Elizabeth and daughter Amy are kidnapped. After a failed rescue attempt, both are killed, leaving Michael devastated. 16 years later, Michael is still grieving but trying to move on. During a trip to Italy, he meets Sandra Portinari. She has a face that is painfully familiar to him, and her presence brings back both his feelings and the mystery of what happened years earlier. Obsession has its problems. The overall plot does not entirely hold together if you think about it too much, but especially if you have not seen Vertigo, it still works pretty well.